Welcome to the Coffee with Cheryl podcast, the podcast for women over 50 who want to live their best life right now. Imagine having the courage to reinvent your life financially, professionally, personally, and spiritually. Join Cheryl and guests as they share practical tips and resources to inspire you to achieve the lifestyle of your dreams. So grab your favorite mug. It's time for Coffee with Cheryl.
Welcome to the Coffee with Cheryl podcast, a podcast for women over 50 who want to live their best life right now. I am your host, Cheryl Garrison. I am a writer. I am a coach. I am passionate about everything that has to do with women over 50. And today we are talking to author Merice Cole, who you will meet in just a few minutes. We are continuing on our series on living your best life as an author. This is our part 3 of that series, and I am so pleased to be able to introduce you to a newly published author. But before we get going with that, first of all, I hope you have your coffee. I have my coffee and my Coffee with Cheryl cup. Make today count. I like that. And we're going to start with our quote, and then we're going to get going. Our quote for today: if you want to change the world, pick up your pen and write. And I am so pleased that Merice Cole decided to pick up her pen and write her new book, No Doubts Here. And Merice, thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Thank you, Cheryl.
Good. It's good to have you on the podcast. Now, I'll give you a little background on how I met Merice. I am blessed that I get a lot of referrals from other women who I've helped publish books, and they introduce me to their friends who have that same desire. And Kimberly Todd Tolos introduced me to Merice because Merice had expressed a desire to publish these beautifully written poems and essays and letters. And so she connected with me, and we were able to work together. And so I want to introduce you to Merice. She is a newly published author. She's an educator. She's a woman over 50. She's a woman of God. She's an amazing individual. Welcome, Merice.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you so much for having me on. It is a pleasure. It is a story to tell. And I am so grateful that between God, Kimberly, and you, that my story's been shared through your publishing company and your team that has worked effortlessly with me in getting this, my thoughts, my heart, my beliefs out, not only to women, but I think to anyone like me who have something to say.
Right.
But sometimes we don't take that leap of faith. We don't take that risk to express, to document it for one, and then take that chance to get it published. So right. I am so grateful to have that opportunity to have met you through Kimberly, who is an amazing, amazing woman in her own rights.
She is. You have a copy of your book handy?
Yes,
I do. Everyone, No Doubts Here.
Yes, No Doubts Here.
And look at the cover. It's such an amazing, unique cover. And inside this book, you will find essays, and you will find letters that she wrote to her mother. You will find things that we'll talk about some of the interior of the book in just a bit. But Merice, tell us what inspired you to write this book. Tell us a little bit about the book.
Right. Reading has always been a passion of mine. Um, when I went to college, I was so happy that I didn't go to a college that required me to take exams after exams, but it
Uh-huh.
did require us to write everything. So we had everything that we did was about writing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it inspired me. But at the same time, after graduating and working, I didn't continue that. I would jot little things down here and there, but it wasn't anything that was substantial enough for me to even think that one day would be published. So when the pandemic happened, we were in school, and our students have the opportunity to present their work online, but also we would meet in the classroom. But when the pandemic happened, that forced us all
Mm-hmm.
to move to online. And it was a challenge. It was a challenge for many, many students to be able to get into that comfort zone, to be able to share everything, to be exposed
Right.
uh, in their own settings, in their personal settings, to be exposed in an academic setting. So we were dually working. We were trying to get students to feel comfortable in their own space, and then exposing them in their own private spaces
Mm-hmm.
to interact academically, which
Right.
was a challenge.
Right.
And so I started asking them little questions about, if you had $1 million, what would you do? And so it kind of opened up the gateway. And so I started writing little pieces and sharing it with them. And they would come back and they would say, Miss Cole, did you write that? And so I would say, yes, I did. And it opened them up to freeing up uh, the isolation
Mm-hmm.
and the ability to be exposed and not be afraid, because I was also exposing myself to them.
Right.
So it was kind of a dual interactive participation for my students and myself that led me to even begin this whole thinking that, ah, you're writing something and they're enjoying what you're writing. And, but still, that wasn't the thought to have it published.
Right.
So I started sharing some of the pieces I had written with friends of mine, and they too would say, you wrote this? And I'm thinking, these people don't believe me. I'm like, I'm taking a risk here and sharing my thoughts with you and sharing things um that I am connected to with you, and you're asking me, did I write this? So at one point I was a little put off, because I'm thinking they're not believing that I'm doing this. And so I read a piece to a gentleman, and he said to me, he was my biggest encourager about that. And this was even before I presented it to Kimberly. And he said to me, you cannot hold on to this. You need to share this. People need to know who you are, and they need to know that you have something to share. And so then I started with, maybe this is possible. And so then I continued writing, and the process probably over the last 2 years, 2.5 years. And then I showed a piece to Kimberly, and she said the same thing. So then I started, okay, my self-esteem kind of lifted a little bit. The positivity started coming
Right.
forefront, and the belief in myself started to take wings. And I said, okay, okay, because I know Kimberly, and she is a forward-thinking
Oh,
woman.
right. She is.
Um,
Yeah.
with with if she says I'm going to do something, you believe that it's going to be done.
Yeah.
So I,
And if
I
you tell her you're going to do something, she's going to encourage you until you do it.
absolutely, absolutely. And so we would meet for coffee or lunch. Um, and so I would bring her little pieces of what I've written, and she kept encouraging me. She just kept encouraging me, keep writing, keep writing, keep writing. So um, the gentleman that had initially lifted my spirits about writing these pieces of poetry introduced me to someone else. And I don't know, but when something isn't for you, it isn't for
Mhm.
you.
Right.
And so it just could not, the dots would not connect. It didn't matter how hard I tried or how hard she tried, the dots just would not connect. And I mentioned it to Kimberly, and she said, "Don't worry about this, girl. We got this." And she introduced me to you. And this is how my world has been now completely exposed and open to my vulnerability um, is out there for everyone to be
Right.
an active participant. And I am more than grateful. I am more than grateful. I feel so blessed to be able to have this opportunity to to offer something um, that will enlighten and that will free up, I think, any person,
Mhm.
but especially women and women over 50 who have something to say, but might be afraid to take the
You
risk
take the
to do.
rest. Hmm. Now, when you sent me your draft, um, for those of you who haven't read the book, I received, I can't even remember how many different pieces, and they kept coming and they kept coming and they kept coming, and I said, well, we have to find a way to
Yes,
organize these
yes,
so that when people pick them up, they will be able to say, okay, I understand this voice and then this voice. And so when we got all these pieces, and I think probably 50 pieces, but
yes,
we're able to organize them, and I want to share with how they're organized in the book. They're organized in these themes. The first theme is faith. Then we have sisterhood. We have gratitude, which is one of my favorites, and sisterhood. We have culture and humanity. And within those, the stories and the writings and the letters and the poetry help you to think about first what it is to have faith. She
yes,
challenges you in your faith. Sisterhood, what does it mean to be a woman? Gratitude. My favorite piece in the whole book is Beach Day. You take a simple thing like going to the beach with a friend and making it the most eye opening, and you feel yourself at the beach when you read this. And if you've ever been to the beach, you will feel like you've been just transported back to the water. And so when I read I was reading these and we were putting together, I thought, oh my, these are so inspirational that we have to get them out there. So, what advice do you have to women who do have that story and are still struggling with how do I take that leap? Tell them a little bit of how to get themselves to that point where they'll take that leap and go ahead and expose themselves and share their knowledge with the world.
I was thinking of the name No Doubts Here, and No Doubts Here to me tells me that there isn't anything that we aspire to do, anything that we are interested in, anything that we want to share with other people. Um, we have a God that is so much bigger than anything that we can imagine, think, or feel, uh, because He's a God that has been there,
Mm-hmm.
done it all. So there isn't anything that will prevent us from peeling off those. And in the book, for me, no doubts here speak to no debilitating, opposing, unreliable, or beastly thinking that will discourage you from dependency to independence.
Oh, wow.
And those were the words that he gave to me to say, you tell anybody that has an interest to positively impact
Mm-hmm.
others around them, don't ever be afraid, because he will walk you through that process and he will put the right people in your path to make that reality happen. And so when I received those words, I could not lay down on them.
Mm-hmm.
I could not toss them out, because they were words that haunted me every time I started writing a piece and felt like I wasn't good enough to publish them or to have them organized in a way that would just kind of leap off the page to speak to someone. And so I would tell any woman, any person, fear is not something that should prevent you from taking action, because fear cripples you from reaching your potential.
It truly does. Fear has kept so many people from sharing brilliance with the world.
Yes.
They were afraid to
Yes.
do it and had no idea what they were holding inside. And I am so pleased that in what I do, working with women to help them get their stories published, is to give them the outlet to share so much knowledge. As we get into our 50s, there's a lot to tell and there's a
Yes.
lot to share.
Yes.
And it's just very, very fulfilling personally to be able to be a part of that. Now, we were talking before, and you were telling me about your experience going to an elementary school and sharing your book.
Yes.
Tell us about how that you were like your bona fide author, walking in with your own book, and tell us tell us about that. That was an interesting story.
That was such an amazing experience. I generally work with teenagers and now teaching adults in college.
Right.
But to go in front of a group of third and fourth graders initially was a challenge for me. I've worked with seventh graders and eighth graders in the past, and they're also a challenging group. But I think elementary school age is for me, is a terrifying experience because you don't know if they're going to speak. You don't know if they're going to pay attention.
Right.
You don't know if they're going to be participatory. It's like a risk that I thought, okay, I'm putting myself in this, but I'm going to tell you, I was amazed, I was pleased, I was inspired, and I hope that I left the children with a wisdom that says to them, there isn't anything that they aspire to do that they will not challenge themselves to see it to fruition. So I didn't take I didn't only take my book. I took Will Smith book. I
Uh-huh.
took some other authors, but I also took Michelle Obama's book with
Uh-huh.
me. And so they were really excited. And I said, I want to introduce you to some authors. And so these are some of the authors but I also want to introduce you to a brand new author. And I showed them a copy of my book.
Uh-huh.
And they were like, you wrote that? That's your book? We love the cover. The cover is awesome. We love the cover of your book. So that really inspired me. And I really have to give my respect to the artist, my friend
Right.
who did the cover for me. He's an amazing artist. So every time someone sees the cover of that book, it kind of pulls them in. And I so appreciate that. But those third and fourth graders really inspired me to do more.
Mhm.
And so I am hoping that that's the message I left with them, that it doesn't matter at what age. And I had them write some poems of their own in the classroom,
Oh,
and
that's
they shared it. So um, it was, for me, a fear that turned into a very positive experience for me.
good.
So
How has I'm not going to say life changed because life is always evolving. But since your book is out there and you've shared it with quite a few people, because I know how many books you've sold. You've sold quite a few books. And how does it feel now that you did it? You overcame the fear. You exposed yourself, and here you are now, Merice Cole, published author. How does that? I mean, how does it? Do you walk a little higher? I mean, how do you feel that?
I am still in awe of all of this. I am still like pinching myself. Just this is real. You are a registered published author of a book, and for me, that it in my secret walk, I am, because I'm a very shy person. I'm an introvert. I'm not an introvert at all. So in my shy walk with myself, I really have to say, oh my gosh, you set out to do something and you did it. And I have women, older women, that have mentored me and we have become friends. And I must tell you, I have, I call her my Jewish godmother. She is the one of the first principals I met when I started working in the
Mhm.
schools. And we have been friends till today. And she said to me, she said, I read your book, and the the acknowledgement that you gave me is something that I will keep with me forever,
Mhm.
because she is one of the women that inspired me to return to school, get my master's degree, work hard, um, help to transform the lives of so many students. And women like that
Mhm.
are people that we need. My mama Hill is another woman. She's an author herself. She was an educator. She has a program that's called Mama Hill's Help After School Program for students. She is one of my biggest fans. She will tell when I go visit her and she has people over, she will introduce me. This is my friend, and she is an author, and it makes my head swell. But it, the other thing that she uh, brought me to tears the other day, because she said she's writing another book, and she said, I want you to write a prayer. And her book is called For Those Without Voices. And she said, I want you to write a prayer for me for the book.
Mhm.
And so I wrote it and I sent it to her, and she is ecstatic. She is just
Oh, that is so exciting.
so, those quiet moments for me, and I call them my quiet moments because I just take them in and give God the glory for
Right,
them,
right.
because there isn't it's not about me. It's about the impact that his work is transforming and are transitioning people to take the risk, to
Right.
take the risk to expose those moments that, or things, or stories, or prayers,
Yeah.
or narratives that you can help change, shape, um, inspire, or transform a life, because we never know when we put our thoughts and feelings to words, how it will impact someone else.
It's very true. And when we do take that step, and I'm blessed to have done that as well. It's just a freeing. It just makes you
Yeah,
feel like, oh, okay.
yeah,
I needed to share that. I've shared it, and now I'm free inside. So what you're doing is you're helping others to share in either, most of the things we share are we either overcome something and we want to share to someone else how to do it, or we want to inspire them through
yes,
our words. Now, what do you have plans on writing another book?
I do, absolutely. You know it, Cheryl. You know it. I'll be knocking on your door.
Well, talk about how it was. I'm not plugging my own company, but I know we were able to work together to get your book done, and that's one thing that as a publisher, my goal in the things that I want to do is to make the process enjoyable, professional, and also once we're at the end of it, to make it something that you're glad that you experienced. So, how was that experience?
For me, it was breathtaking. It was positive. It was impactful. It was smooth. It was a delight for me to work with you and your team. I could not, um, I can't even find the words, but I could not have come into a better relationship than the relationship that we have developed
Right.
over the last 8 months or so, um, getting this book published and getting it organized. I knew absolutely zero about organizing. I know how to organize my thoughts,
Yeah.
but I don't know how to organize a book to have it published. And you made that process so easy for me, so delightful, that yes, here I come again, because we're we're going to do a second one. Yes.
Well, I feel through the process, I didn't just publish a book. I earned a friend in
Thank
meeting.
you. Thank you. As
It,
why those
yeah, it's
same
just
feelings were evoked in me, to know that when God put people in your path, that He is putting people in your path with a purpose.
right.
He's putting them in your path with a purpose. And I cannot begin to explain to anyone, the true relationship that has transpired, through this process of writing this book and having it published by you. It has been a great joy for me
Yeah. For
to
me,
have
too. For me as
experience.
well. Absolutely, for me as well. I encourage everyone to go out and buy this book. You can find it on Amazon. Merice
Yes,
Cole. Just Google
yes,
or go in and search her name or search the title. You can get it on Amazon. And I think for those who are listening to the podcast, I think you have a special offer for them.
yes. If you buy 2 books, you get the third one free.
They're great.
That
Okay.
you will be able to share that with 3 people instead of one.
Right. That's great. And we
Yeah.
will put your contact information in the comments for those who connect with you, and then you will give them details on how to get that special offer. Um,
Yes.
and those of you listening, I truly encourage you to go out and get No Doubts Here, because just as I was working with Merice to publish this book, and I had to read through it. I can't even tell you how many times, but every time I read, I learned something different from a different piece, because there are, like I said, there are in this book there
I,
are at least 50 pieces of essays and poetry and anything that you are encountering in today's world.
yes.
Find something in
Absolutely.
this book that touches on it.
Absolutely.
She
Absolutely.
she has a very stirring piece on COVID.
Oh.
Um, tell us, tell us, tell us about. Well, it's a lot of how some of these got written through the process of you getting COVID.
Yes.
But your explanation of how it felt to be isolated is very, very telling and touching. So tell us about COVID and No Doubt Here.
COVID came about in 2020, and I was in school teaching and, interacting with my students, and going to my after school program and working with those students there, and just doing life. And one day, coming back from an event from, I believe it was from my after school program, I unfortunately forgot that I was in COVID mode, and saw a young lady that needed some support. And I rolled my window down and spoke with her and gave her some money. And about 3 days later, I realized that I was coming down. I thought I was coming down with the flu or something. And I was in the process of getting a procedure done, a medical procedure done. And I went to my doctor and I said, I think I have the flu. And so he said, go get a COVID. So I did. And lo and behold, I had COVID. So it took me, and we were still very new in COVID.
Right.
And so it was where isolation was 14 days, not like today where you really don't have to isolate 3 or 5 days. So those 14 days held me prisoner with myself, with the Lord, and with my Bible, and with anything positive. I listened to gospel songs. I learned so many new gospel artists during that 14-day, that 14-day stint of COVID.
Right.
And writing became my outlet.
Right.
During that 14, and I documented my journey through those 14 days of COVID. And it was a way to release the fear, because if you read the book, there were days when I was just out of control, completely lost myself. Fear sometimes took over. Right. And I remember one day I was able to go out in the backyard and sit in the sun for a little bit while everyone else around me remained
far away,
away from me. And the Lord just said to me, there's no doubt I have killed the root of that which touched you. And that did something to me that I needed that day to feel like I was a child of God, and that He would protect me. And that took me to a different level of thinking and journey through COVID and through my writing experiences. And it was a freeing of sort for me. It was really a freeing for me. And it allowed me to let go of fear and embrace the thing that God has given me to do. And this book is not about me. You will not find one. All the stories are personal,
right?
But you will not find one story about Merice,
right? Exactly.
This is Merice's story, right? Because I believe that every experience I have had, someone else has had that experience. But God has given me a way to write those stories so that others can be impacted by them.
Exactly. It's very true. And that's what you will find when you purchase Merice's book and have the privilege of reading it. Merice, I so appreciate you coming on the podcast today and sharing your journey and sharing your story with us, and encouraging other people who are out there who have a story to tell. Let it be told, and find someone to help you. If you need me to help you, let me know, but find someone who will help you get that story told, because some of the greatest greatest knowledge is gone. It's as Miles Monroe says, in the graveyard. So
Yes.
don't take it with you. Share it with us while we are here and can cherish it. And Merice is one of those people who stepped out, and she is definitely living her best life as an author. And you can too. So I encourage you, either go on Amazon, buy the book, or connect with Merice, and we will put her contact information and get the special offer of 3 books. And I really appreciate those of you who joined us today. I appreciate you, Merice, for being here. And for those of you who are living your best life, don't do it tomorrow. Don't do it 3 years from now. Do it today, right now. Live your best life. And if we all do that, this will be just a absolutely wonderful, wonderful world.